Honestly, you're probably very familiar with this recruit right here.
I know him.
But now we're going to finally start talking about 2024's recruiting cycle for Auburn football. Now that 2023 has ended, let's talk about him, what it means for him and Auburn football. Before we do that, always want to remind you to smash the like button if you enjoy this type of content, and be sure to drop a comment down below as you're watching or listening today. It will help you enter you into that ongoing subscriber giveaway for a signed Auburn football prize package. And lastly, always want to thank members of our booster club like Thomas Manville, who help produce videos like this. As previously mentioned, 2023 is done for the recruiting cycle. So go check out all those videos that we have for you available to get to know some of those players that will be part of the roster coming up very, very soon. Let's turn the page to 2024 with the first overall commit, who's been committed for quite some time. His name is Amman Lane, and he kickstarts 2024 in a big fashion for Auburn football. Amman Lane is a defensive back commit that chose the Tigers way back in the summer of 2022, to be specific, July 30th. And since it's been quite a bit of time since then, let me remind you of the timeline of events about how we actually got to this point, which starts back with an offer from the Auburn Tigers on April 5th of 2021, when he was just a sophomore. Now, leading up to his eventual public commitment, he chose to be a silent commit during that summer before officially making it a vocally public commitment on Big Cat Weekend alongside another at then point commit, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Now, he's had a few unofficial visits for Auburn since then and has remained committed since that point, even with a new regime, which is a good sign to start off this class. Lane is considered a 4-star defensive prospect by most sites, coming from Moody, Alabama, and plays for Moody High School. Now, most people consider him to be a cornerback when he gets to college, and that's likely where he will be. But there is some versatility there, with some option maybe to play a position like nickelback when he actually arrives to campus, depending on how he fills out. Now, currently, he's listed about 5'11", 180 pounds, which makes sense for a cornerback position. But again, we'll just have to wait and see when he gets on campus. I want to talk about some storylines around this commitment, which, yes, date back all the way to when he first committed to Auburn. Now, the cool thing about this was it was on Big Cat Weekend, and there was a second one alongside him, the quarterback, Adrian Passe, who is now decommitted from the Tigers. There's some understandable reasons around that. We detail that in another video if you want to go check that out. But the fact that he has remained committed for such a long time, especially as the first commitment, is a huge thing. You got to think for Hugh Freeze, keeping Zach Etheridge part of this team was a huge reason on why he has decided to remain loyal to the Tigers. And the great thing about these first ones remaining committed and being the leaders for this class going forward. We saw that with Braden Joyner in the previous class, and you can continue that storyline throughout every single class, and I'm looking at Amman Lane to be that for Auburn in 2024. Lastly, in the About This Prospect section, we usually mention some stats if we have them. There's not a lot out there right now, considering he's not even to his senior year yet, so I don't really have any football stats, but I do got some things in terms of his speed that you might be interested in. Now, back in 2022, he was clocked in running the 100-meter dash at 10.60 seconds. And I also found this because I found out he was a track and field athlete too, which you'd expect, being a pretty fast guy. In indoor competition at this time in the 60-meter, he ran a 7.25-meter run. Now, if you compare that to collegiate standards, that's not going to be as fast as them. But being a junior only in high school right now, he's only going to get bigger, stronger, and faster. That just gives you a baseline to know what you're working with at the cornerback position with this guy. Now that you know a little bit about the player, let's talk about what it means for him, yes, but also for Auburn football. And we always start off by talking about what it means for the current class for 2024. And this is real easy, folks. He is the first overall commitment. So he's going to be your first traditional recruit. When we say that, we're talking about transfers and all that kind of stuff. He's also the first defensively, the first defensive back, and the first cornerback. Now, that was easy to talk about, but let's talk about the harder thing. What does his future playing time look like when he arrives at the Tigers? Really hard to do, even from his commitment date all to the way to the point when he follows through his commitment, hopefully sticking with the Tigers and coming on to campus. We'll do our best at it. Always stress that you plan on these guys to redshirt, so you're not disappointed if you don't see them out there. But with these type of positions, these skill players, you often see them utilized a lot on special teams, so chances are you'll see them out in the field. But let's look at that depth chart and see what is available there for him in terms of roster spots. Now, if you look at the guys leaving right now, you got Nehemiah Pritchett and DJ James, who will likely be gone after the season. And I'll throw Jalen Simpson in there too, just because he's switched back and forth from cornerback to safety, but he's an available option at that position. You've also got guys that are incoming into more prominent roles there. JD Rim, Austin Osbury, and then even the guys coming from the 2023 class. You got JC Hart, Colton Hood, and Kayan Lee too that are going to be in those spots. So while it's going to be hard for him to crack the two deep there, if he's good enough, it is possible. Just it's going to be pretty full for the time being. We do want to mention regional discussions when we talk about where these guys are coming from for this respective class. Now, when you look at this one, it's the first one from the state of Alabama. First one overall, obviously, but the first one is coming from Alabama. That's huge. Your big state, your home state. The big three being Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And more importantly, it's coming from the Birmingham area to start off with, which is a talent-rich area, just being a big city. Moody's not too far outside of that. It's a good sign to see us already dipping into that talent pool area and drawing one out, yes, way back when too. And lastly, we want to talk about what does the future look like for this position group in this class based off this commitment. Now, you can go back to our discussion about some of the depth chart, which will inform some of this here, but being the first overall cornerback commit, and you usually bring in at least multiple of those in a cycle, I would expect at least another one, if not multiple more, just defensive backs wise in general. The first one, so it's really easy to say at this point, expect more. That's going to do it for my thoughts on this initial commit for the 2024 class, Amman Lane. Would love to know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Be sure to do that so you can be entered into that subscriber giveaway. Make sure you're subscribed as well because that's part of the process too. And lastly, check all the links out in the description for ways you can help support us here at E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. War Eagle.